Freakier Friday, working with Jamie Lee and Lindsay. How was that?
For me, it's not about doing a second one or a third or a fourth or fifth. To me, it's all about Curtis.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm a fan of hers. I've always been a fan of hers. I've known her since she was a teenager, and I just support her, you know, and I've never met anybody like her. She's a force. To have a chance to toe a mark opposite her and play, which is what we do, anytime.
Do you realize you two are probably the sexiest people of your generation? You were sexiest man alive once.
As opposed to sexiest man dead.
Do you ever think about that?
I don't. No, I just remembered I was up playing basketball in La Cañada on Thursday nights. That's what I did, and I went up there that Thursday night, and they had the whole backboard plastered with that cover.
No,
Yeah.
Come on.
That's how I found out.
No.
Totally. Yep. It was like, oh man, I was embarrassed.
Well, this is news to be proud of. NCIS Origins just got picked up for a full season. Mark, of course, is the executive producer and narrator of the series.
Workplace distractions. They were great.
How good does that feel?
You know, Kevin, it's a reintroduction to what this business is, and you approach the next hurdle, and you work hard to try to format a show that people have interest in actually doing, and then it's about a time slot, and then it's about a time slot that you like, and then it's about getting an order, and then it's about trying to get a back-end order, which we just received, which feels really good. So we're approaching these successive hurdles, and it's a reintroduction to me about just how hard it is to do this and do it well, and try to keep your eye on the reason you're trying to do it in the first place. And it's been 20 years since I did the Mothership, and my memory of that, and how you waited each moment for that next step.
Right.
NCIS.
Mark is paying homage to the franchise with his second book, Ghosts of Panama, out now. This is a follow-up to his bestseller, Ghosts of Honolulu. Both are based on true, untold stories of unsung heroes.
When you came up with this series of books, did you also know that you were going to make heroes out of these NCIS agents?
I never thought of it like that, Kevin. I just knew there was a story to tell, and how I got involved in telling it, I'm not quite sure, other than doing the TV show. But that started with my friendship with Leon Carroll, and this is a chance to give back to those silent professionals who have never talked about it and never been asked, and now they can talk about it, and they have. So that's why we're writing a book.
Last time it was Douglas Wada. This time it's Rick Yell that we get to learn about, this agent who, and his family also. And that is part of what weaves in and makes this, I think, so interesting, is all the different people we learn along the way. Why is that important?
It's a current story, and then it's 1990. It's Panama. Leon Carroll was there, so it's personal for him.
I got to get into Manuel Noriega. He was into some crazy stuff.
Yep.
Like, we learned really about the details of what was going on behind the scenes with him.
Yeah, in some ways we had a little to do with creating that. Then we go in and try to fix it. It's not a new story. You know, history repeats itself, and yet very important to the individuals who were there at the time, who were witnessing it, and certainly the families that were there. And that's what we tried to do in the first book. You're talking about Douglas Wada. You bring him forward. He's never been forward before. Leon Carroll, who been a special agent for 20-something years, had never even heard the name Douglas Wada. And now, you know, you introduce Rick Yell and his family, and you just you bring these people out of the shadows, so to speak, and they've never been out of the shadows. So for them, this is different as well.
Yeah, I think the first book kind of unveiled someone. This book really takes you behind the scenes and tells you some stuff.
Yeah, and you're right. They're different, and World War II stuff is people really like that. It's got an attraction to it. This is not that. This is Panama, and people don't really know about Panama or what was going on. Or if you think you know about that time, you realize reading this you don't at all, and you certainly don't know about the individuals who were there and how it affected them and their families. And it continues to, by the way.
You read this book and you realize you know nothing about Panama. Everything you think you know, you're like, oh, I know. And no, you don't know anything.
I actually see a couple more of these in the future, and we have a direction to go into. And in both cases, they'll be similar to the first two. One will be more agency related than the other. But as far as my involvement, I'm just looking for or interested in a good story to tell.
Where do you go next?
Probably Sicily.
Really?
Yeah.
Question, will you ever write a memoir?
I hope not.
Why not?
Well, because I just think it would be so boring. I'd write about you.
No, I'd write about you.
I don't know. I think about the first time I met you,
Do you remember what we were talking about that day? It was a cereal commercial.
and I remember the shirt I had to wear.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really strange shirt, but I do remember it. It was a velour shirt in the days when velour were happening.
I love that you remember all that.
You had stripes going every which way. I remember it, yeah.
Yeah. That's why.
It certainly wasn't mine.
So back to why you need to write a memoir. There's a journey. The history, the things you've done, professional sports, television, great movies, great TV series. It's just funny because I remember being like, oh, Southern California is this cool place as a kid on the East Coast because watching the football games and you playing quarterback and you're like, oh my God, this place is unbelievable while it's snowing back on the East Coast.
No, I get it. But as a kid, that's really all I ever wanted to do. I mean, I would go to the Coliseum with my dad at the time when he was broadcasting. That's where he broadcasted from, whether it was a Ram game or a college game or whatever he was doing. And I ran copy from the press box down to the basement. That's where the printer was. And I would look at that tunnel in the Coliseum and just marvel at the idea that one day, maybe one day I get a chance to come out of there in a uniform as a player. To be able to do that at 20 years old and in front of 80,000 people, which is what it was, in so many ways, it was a dream come true.
This year, Mark is celebrating a career milestone.
It's fine, don't worry about it.
Chicago Hope, 30th anniversary.
Wow.
What do you remember about that?
Just lucky to have a job with that group of individuals.
What a great group.
Yeah, what a great cast, and everybody liked each other, and good material to say. You know, I was introduced to, hey, guess what? You're better when you're surrounded by better people and better dialogue and better everything. And I just remember walking into that meeting first time to get that part or read for that part, and just feeling like this is different. And I was happy to be there and to come back to the studio in this lot at this time, and then remember all that is fun for me.
What was the best part of making that show?
The people. It was a time in television, I think, that it's not like that anymore, and I don't know that you could gather that collection like that was. But every day it was a lesson, and every day there was something to learn. And it was an important place for me to spend some time.